Hey guys, what's going on? I am joined by the one, the only, my brother from another mother, my partner in crime. He's this way. Kavo, you guys know him from the Patch Day. You guys know him from the Patch Day podcast, which he hosts. I just appear there sometimes, show up and show off. He does the work, he pushes all the buttons. But today, after just having recorded an episode of said podcast, we're going to be talking a little bit about Legion, World of Warcraft Legion, and how it has, just how it's been. I think we're a little bit late to the party with that, but with the last raid being out, some 7.3.5 coming out with some new systems of the next expansion, I think it's time we sit down and talk about it.
I,
So,
I agree.
yeah, I mean, I don't think a whole lot of people have talked about how it was like as it's gone along, but not too many people have done like a wrap up discussion. And so we're gonna hit on leveling up, zones, raids, and storytelling for the most part, but with anything else sprinkled in.
Yeah.
Well, what we're gonna really start with is the launch. Like, dude,
Yeah.
honestly, probably the best launch we've had ever.
Yeah, like compared, like it's miles different from when WAD came out. You remember like the phasing problems that happened?
Yeah,
Like
it
holy
was.
shit.
Some people had little to no problem with WAD. Some people were out of commission for almost a week. But the problem is, and this has been a problem forever. Like in the Burning Crusade, everyone started in Hellfire Peninsula. Wrath through, you know, Pandaria. Technically, everyone got to start at separate parts of the zone, so there was no ganking and phasing and lag issues. Warlords, we were all funneled through the same scenario, but then we had our own separate zones. You had level scaling, and you could start from any zone you wanted in Legion,
Oh
which
yeah.
I think is such a simple feature, but one of the better parts. My only gripe with it is that you do zones in different orders when you level alts a lot of the times, and it'll feel like you've just been to that zone. Not, I don't really like that as much. I kind of prefer the linear, you know, I don't know, like that one guy who prefers the linear zones, but I think that was a big part why people loved the leveling as well because it had a very diverse style, and people could enjoy that,
It
in
was
whichever
more
order they wanted.
choose. It was more choose your own adventure, which made. I mean, a lot of people like if you remember the old RPG novels and stuff back in the day, where it was literally choose your own adventure. Like you had like a different path. Would you rather go this way, or would you rather go that way, or what should you do? And like you had Ben Brode at BlizzCon last year with the Hearthstone things. Like which way you guys want to go, this way or that way? And they chose the, they chose the option, and then like they sprung a trap, and he said, "All right, this half of the room over here, you're all dead."
Yeah,
All right. So, I mean, it's the cool thing about it. Like you have your own choice. It gives you more like suggestions. Like it's in your hands. What do you want to do first? Now, if you're one of those people who think, you give me what I should do. You tell me where I need to go, and I'll do it, and that's what I'll do. If you're that kind of person, then it's fine. Then you can stick with that path. But if you're like a lot of players, like you kind of want to like level at your own pace. Like you want to like go at your own zone. And the cool thing about how this the scaling system work is if you wanted to finish the story of that zone, you literally did, and then you'd move to the next zone, and all the enemies are scaled to you, which was a big success on behalf of like Blizzard's part of implementing that. A lot of people love that idea, and a lot of people like are enjoying the fact that that's actually bleeding over into Battle for Azeroth as well.
mm, yeah, totally. And again, another little gripe I have with it, and it's really not a gripe, but something you think about is like, well, if you can do whichever zone you want, then canonically, which happened first? It's not largely relevant. Like the caveat for that is it's not largely relevant as to which one happened first. The only thing that like really, really matters is like the culmination of everything in Suramar. Like the Emerald Nightmare was it was fairly inconsequential for the most part. Like we went in, we stopped Xavius, and that's the last we heard of anything. Trial of Valor, we got to bro up with Odin again. We smacked the doggy, and then we killed Helia and fucked her with our own tentacles, as Asmongold said. And then that was the end of it. Whereas like Nighthold and Suramar, like let's just zone into the next, no pun intended, zone into the next point of discussion here. Suramar, man, like that whole campaign, the zone itself was amazing. By the way, one of the best zones
Mm-hmm.
they've ever made. But
That city is gorgeous.
it is like, geez, pleasure tingles. Like anything that's like ancient elven, architecture, pleasure tingles, man. Like one of my favorite dungeons is the Well of Eternity because we see a bit of that pre-Sundering Elven architecture and stuff, and I wanted to see more of that. We kind of got that with Suramar, but what I loved is how they played out the campaign, that whole storyline. It got people who didn't really give a shit about the story invested because how could you not? Like it gripped you by the nuts. It really did. Like it sent you like you were literally
Not in a good way.
you knew. Well, yes, I know. But like you were like fighting off like magic addicts and you were like helping these people and and I think a lot of it is they kind of went all Game of Thrones on you with the characters is they would introduce you to a character you would kind of attach and then they die. Like
Yeah.
well that was all of Legion, but
Like
like
that. Oh, who was that one? Not It was in Sir. She was in Suramar. She was the vineyard lady.
Margot.
Yeah, Margot. Like
Yeah.
I liked her, and then they just freaking killed her. I'm like,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
It wasn't even like a ceremonious kill. It was more of like she was trying to run and they just backhanded her or something like that.
Yeah, like it's funny you mentioned that because I literally just did that like 2 days ago on my priest, so I can get revered with them to get my balance of power appearance. But yeah, like she basically didn't want one of the guards like punishing the workers for making a mistake, and she's like, no, stop, don't hurt him. And then like a few quests later, they phased into this little in-game cutscene where it's like your punishment is death. Proceed. Two guys just arcane blast her, and she just falls over, and that's it. I'm like, really? That's all she gets? But I mean, like a lot of people died in Legion. Everyone died in Legion. Tyrion obviously, rest in peace. The fluffy moonkins in Stormheim. Ysera. Unfortunately, not Sylvanas. Let's see how many jimmies that rustle. Let's rustle some jimmies there. Let's rustle some jimmies there. But
she's one. She's still. I still like her as a character. So
as a character, yeah, I will say as a character, yes, Sylvanas is really she's interesting. I mean, I feel like they've kind of been doubling back a little bit. I feel like her story was very nicely wrapped up at the end of Wrath of the Lich King. But it started off. I mean, started technically in like the older novels in the second war, but it really kicked off in Warcraft 3, and like that was cool. And then it culminated and eventually climaxed in Wrath of the Lich King. I don't think they needed to drag it out this far, but that's just my personal alliance biased opinion. But sour fang for Warchief. But that whole Suramar campaign, like I'm not really one who's very supportive of this might sound elitist, but I've never been a real big supporter of solo players in an MMO. It's an MMO, you're supposed to play with other people. But aside from a handful of dungeon quests, which you can just queue for, that Suramar campaign is probably the best thing for solo players ever implemented in the game. Because
for some parts of it, there's other parts you kind of do need a group unless you're that OP.
right,
if you're like a blood DK, you're probably gonna be fine.
right, like there is
a healer.
Like there's an outdoor group quest that said suggested players 5, and I went in on my 924 disc priest because again you have to remember what this was tuned for. Like at launch, this was tuned for people who are probably in like the 860, maybe 870 gear range.
That low. Not even.
Oh yeah, no, because this is like freshly capped, so you're not even a Nighthold yet, so like lower maybe mid 800s. I went in on my 924 disc priest, and the only reason I had someone come in and help me is because the boss stuns you like regularly, and you literally can't kill him. So like outdoor group quests that require some people, a few of them require going into dungeons, and eventually culminates in obviously going into the Nighthold. But yeah, for the most part, you can go through that experience solo. Or with a very small group or through queuing or with Group Finder. And for people who don't, for some reason, like doing stuff with people in an MMO, like that was a godsend. That campaign. You could follow a story and you could really get absorbed into it. And for once, you weren't just super mighty, Titan Forged defender of Azeroth. You're that kind of strong adventurer who's helping out with your new friends trying to take their city back. And it wasn't just like, oh, you beat the bad guys up and save the day. It was, it was gated, but it was like, what, an 11-week process? Because back in the day, well, like earlier in launch, it was locked out. You can only do one chapter per week. They eventually hotfixed that. You can blaze through it in a day if you wanted to now, or maybe a few days. But that was like an 11-week process. Like you were grinding to take back that city, and you really felt immersed in that whole thing.
Yeah.
And which will lead me right into the next topic, which is raids. The Nighthold is my favorite raid in Legion. Loved the Nighthold. Bit of a soft spot because that's when I really joined my new guild and started improving as a player. But what'd you think about the Nighthold, Capo?
Well, I really didn't get to do too much raiding in it because during that time, I had no free time to actually do raids because my work schedule sucked. The only time I ever got to raid was like partial raids with my guild, and even then I didn't get to see all the content. But what I did
Crystal.
enjoy, oh, the crystal, yeah, that was fun. But what I did enjoy about it was seeing um the last cutscene when you see Illidan actually finally reappear, and
Yeah.
just having like realizing Goldan's like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
something bad's happening, and then you see shoom, right behind him.
It's like in
So
the
he's wanting to
Looney Tunes
shoot out.
episodes where like you see one of the characters about to fall off a cliff, they just hold up a sign that goes "Yipe." It was like that. Yeah, like
But I do love the throwback to, when originally when Illidan had Goldan's skull in his hand from back in I think it was in Burning Crusade.
mhm.
Like we see in the cinematic, you see him holding his skull in his hand and just like flying up. And then in this cinematic, you see him like burning him in place and like taking his skull and crushing it.
Oh, that was so
And
good. And
it
he
was
killed
just
him the
such
way
a cool
Gul'dan killed
throwback.
Varian, which I liked.
Exactly. I did love that like little nod to it. It's like, yeah, this is a fuck you for what you did to to King Varian.
See, I don't think
Which
I don't think Elden gave a shit, but I think that was like a little nod from the
no.
developers. You know, like, heh, heh, you see that? Yeah,
He's
that
like,
was good.
guys, we hear you. We know you're mad. This is just gonna help you out a little bit.
Yeah,
But
like Kill Jaden was awesome. The Tomb of Sargeras was cool. Titans and Antorus, yeah, that's cool. But to me, everything culminated in Illidan coming back and crushing the shit out of Gul'dan. You know, like the Nighthold, I think it's the best rig. I think it had the best. I'm talking from like normal heroic, like what most people end up seeing. Mythic took a lot of turns, a lot of issues with Mythic, but normal and heroic, it had a good. There was a clear difference between normal and heroic. Like last expansion and previous expansions, there weren't too many extra mechanics added from normal to heroic. It was usually most of the same mechanics, just tuned higher. There was like removal and addition of mechanics that like they're making the transitions even more forgiving for people who are going from LFR to normal to heroic and then potentially mythic, which I like and dislike. I like that it's always giving people something to shoot for and always giving them something to be satisfied with, in terms of rating. But I think my overall favorite experience was killing Gul'dan heroic because it was very doable, but it required a lot of raid coordination. And okay, I'm not gonna nerd about raiding because I can nerd out about Nighthold heroic all day, but we're not gonna do that. But yeah, Nighthold was good, and when we had heard the announcement at BlizzCon that we're going to the Tomb of Sargeras, and we saw those screenshots of the fallen avatar and Kill Jaden, what were your reactions, my friend?
oh my god, like whenever we found like we had all this information about 7.2, with all Nighthold stuff, we were just wanting to learn more informations, and then hearing about like what our forms would look like primarily if you remember the Guardian Druid appearance that they were eventually going to get, and which we found out was in the form of the Mage Tower, which I'm sure we're going to talk about a little bit, and I
Oh
wouldn't
yeah.
say.
Ugh.
But having said that though, having seeing like the reaction to like when um they revealed that Guardian Druid appearance, it was like,
Oh,
whoa,
the bro bear.
holy crap, or Hulk Bear,
Yeah,
whatever it was.
werebear. There's so
Um,
many names for it.
but seeing all the images, and then all of a sudden they say, by the way, we have one more thing we'd like to talk about, and then they show 7.3, like we're going to Sargeras, and we're like, what?
And
We're
then
actually
Argus.
going there? Oh my god, you gotta be, or not going to Sargeras, going to Argus. You're right. We're going there to like fully solidify this threat. I'm like, I like this. I love where they're
See,
going
I
with
like how
this.
there's a bit of mystery to that. It's like, yeah, we're going to Argus. Yeah, that's how we're gonna stop the Legion. But how are we gonna do it? What's gonna happen? Like, and
Right.
then like new raid, like they were kind of quiet about Antorus, which I liked. Like Antorus, the Burning Throne. What the hell is that? Like
Yeah.
Argus, the Unmaker. Okay, Titan lore, which they've been really pushing Titan lore in Legion, obviously to build up for this, and that final cutscene, which we'll get to in a minute. But like the Nighthold, like there wasn't a whole lot of mystery with the earlier raids. Like the Emerald Nightmare, like we had a lot of expectations, but it was just like, gray and red reskins of other places. Trial of Valor was pretty much a reskin of the dungeon and Helheim, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Trial of Valor was okay. Nighthold, it was my favorite, but like we'd seen a lot of that art style in Suramar already. Tomb of Sargeras, we hadn't seen a lot of, but like the lore heads are very familiar with the Tomb of Sargeras story wise. But then Antorus came along, everyone was like, "What the hell is an Antorus?" You know, which I kind of like that mystery that was kind of shrouded behind it. But I was so hyped. Like in terms of pre-raid hype, I would say Tomb of Sargeras was probably highest for me because I played Warcraft 3. that night elf campaign in the Frozen Throne where you went in as Maiev and you were seeing Gul'dan's runes and the story he was telling, and like, and now in World of Warcraft, over a decade later, we're actually gonna see that, like face to face, and then we're gonna fight Kil'jaeden with this glorious new model. That Kil'jaeden model, dude, loved it.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, good shit, man. And then we went to Argus. Like, what did you think of? What were your initial impressions of like us going to Argus?
Well, I was little intrigued, like that the fact that we were going there to, like obviously like solidify the threat. This is like Velen finally deciding we're not running anymore. We're doing this head on. We're gonna make sure that this situation gets handled, and I'm not gonna run because, as Illidan points out in that very well done that machinima, by the way, of with the smirking Illidan,
Hmm.
you with him basically saying like whenever they whenever both Kil'jaeden and Archimonde like took the power, what did you do? You ran. When they started attacking on Draenor, what did you do? You ran. And they did all of these like situations with you running. And now like Velen's kind of realizing like he's saying I had a duty to do that. I didn't have a choice. And then Illin's basically telling him we all have a choice. And
I've sacrificed everything.
yeah, literally. Um, and so, you got to make a choice here. Do you want to keep running and just delay the inevitable? Or do you want to make this other choice and make a stand and finally finish this threat for at least, like, for what looks like it will be forever, but we all know it's probably not going to be forever. Um, so what are you going to do? And he's finally like, all right, fine. Let's go ahead and eradicate this threat, which I'm glad we did, because if we didn't, we probably would not have seen Turalyon and Illyria show back up.
True. And, dragging out the inevitability of facing off against, like, the big Legion bad guys wouldn't have been good for, like, the player base either. Because, like, Burning Crusade, we dealt with them. They've been mentioned as, like, oh, this isn't over, this isn't over. We didn't kill Kil'jaeden, we just flushed them down the golden magic toilet. Like, they're gonna come back. Like, now, I like the, don't get me wrong, the Legion has worn me out a little bit on the Burning Legion as an enemy. But I've been looking forward to facing off against the Burning Legion, and this probably just as much as Arthas and the Scourge. I
Mm-hmm.
because like you get those big characters like Archimonde, Kil'jaeden, and all those like mini stories. Like demons are cool, man. They're cool. I like the closure. Like we have dealt with this. Like, and I like how we didn't take down Sargeras. We didn't just attack his toes and have him fall over in some giant room in a raid instance. We
Yeah.
didn't do shit to Sargeras. Like we took down an extremely weakened form of a Titan who was pretty much C-sectioned out of the planet and then corrupted and then drained. Like we took him out, and then with him out of the way, the Titans were able to regain their strength and imprison their brother. With Illidan, helping out kind of. I don't think he actually did anything. I think him being the jailer was just him saying, "Yeah, I'm gonna watch over him for a while." But that was another thing. Like, how are you satisfied with how they did Illidan's redemption story?
I don't like. I thought it was kind of a little rushed in a way,
A little bit.
because like you get but and then also not only that, you get all this build up with Zira like basically talking about the story about him being the chosen one and him being the one that's going to like eradicate this threat, and hyping him up all the way to make it sound like, oh man, he's going to come back in this super form. And then what does he do? He freaking laser beams the hell out of her and kills her.
See, I thought that was
Like,
brilliant.
yeah, which that turning point there I liked, but originally I didn't like this whole build up of him having to like have like some sort of redemption, because you don't have to be redeemed from a prophecy or anything. You can just be redeemed by making your own damn choice, which is what Illidan eventually made.
It's all he was about.
And
Yeah.
and so I didn't like the whole quest line where like it was leading up to like Illidan redeeming himself. I didn't like that whole thing. I did like the result where you see Illidan like claiming his destiny by basically saying, "Look," by saying, "You don't tell me who you are. I am my scars, literally." So
That's such an edgy line, and I loved it so much.
yeah, and he and she got destroyed, and Turalyon gets all butthurt about it. But I mean, Velen didn't interfere. Illyria didn't interfere. I think they both realized that, yeah, this didn't seem like like the way we were told before, and like there is, but the thing, my favorite thing about this whole part of Argus was the introduction, the deep dive more into the void, and
Yeah.
the with the void becoming now first off, the void is what will actually eradicate a first, not forsaken, what is scourge, not scourge, legion. Wow. It'll that's you go into the void, you go into the twisting nether, bam, you get rid of a demon.
Right, and the
Right?
void
It's
is
like
like an all-consuming thing that's even like the Void Lords. Like they were, it was talked about how they're an even greater threat than the Legion. And I don't really like how the big bads just keep getting bigger and badder. It seems like too far out of reach and larger than life. But I do like how they're kind of keeping it in mystery. We don't know a lot about the void, and I think that's because there's not much to know about it, which I like when there's mystery.
I wish we had more of them, like in like as much as I'm hyped for Battle for Azeroth, like friggin' a Zandalari troll, but I was hoping that it was going to be some sort of like light versus shadow type deal, where like you kind of have to make a choice in a way, like a kind of like you remember with the scryers and the Aldor
Oh
in
yeah.
Burning Crusade.
Oh, I'll never
Like
forget.
you kind of have to make a choice, like who do you want to go, or who are you really going to fight for, like in this time of like light versus shadow. And I was kind of hoping for that. I mean, granted, it was a long shot, but I'm still hopeful that they're going to do something more with the void, with plus the introduction of void elves as a allied race.
Yeah.
So there's going to be something coming in regards to, like, this conflict of the void, because we see the Lotus Walker, we had a whole dungeon where it was legitimately a fight against the void lords and such.
Void presences, yeah.
Void presences, excuse me, and then a celestial that was turned into it. Was it celestial?
Naru.
Naru.
Yeah, like our second dealing with Fallen Naru. I think it was done. It was a better fight than Muru. I'll give it that. But yeah, I like how, because not only did it give us a break from the Legion theme, because like it's Argus. It's the homeworld of Legion. We're gonna see more green and fell. That's bound to happen. But I like how we just got a new color scheme. We got a new theme for a dungeon.
Arena.
Yeah, like we got purple. Like there's still been a decent bit of purple in
And
Legion.
yellow.
Yeah, purple and like yellow, gold. We got some nice, beautiful skyboxes, which Blizzard skyboxes are always brilliant, by the way. Hellfire Peninsula, mate. We got some new thing, and that's what I like about Legion is that yes, the overall theme is a Legion, but all like the side stories and like subplots have all had a unique theme. Like the leveling up zones. Like we had different elf stories in Ajuna and Suramar. We had the Tauren and with moose antlers, and the Drogbar and High Mountain with lots of rocks and stuff. Stormheim was the Vrykul and the Kavaldir, and you had all the druidic stuff and the nightmare stuff and Val'sharah. Like there was a nice variety. I think they tried a little bit too much to have too many different things, because the more things you have, the more it kind of dilutes the pool a little bit. Like, we're going to give you, some more Gen versus Sylvanas, but then there's literally nothing conclusive about that. Right. They smacked each other in Stormheim, but like, oh no, she can't make more Forsaken by controlling the Queen of the Valkyr. Oh no. Like, that's it. There's no, like, real conclusive storyline there.
Although, to be honest, like, that was some sort of closure for Gen a little bit, though. Because you remember back in when you level as a undead, or if you level in Silverpine, you do find out, like, Sylvanas, like, pretty much kills his son.
Oh yeah, if you play the Gilneas starting zone, like, you watch it happen.
Yeah. So, and that was a form of redemption for him, like, preventing her the ability to actually recreate or produce any more Forsaken properly.
Right.
Because he in his line is, you took my future, now I'm taking yours.
Yeah, you took my son's future, now I've taken yours. Like, that's such a powerful line, dude.
Yeah. As someone who's not necessarily a good fan of Alliance characters, I really enjoyed that.
You gotta respect his motivation.
Yeah, I respected that. I was like, yeah, that we had that coming.
Yeah, honestly, because like, what can he do? Like he didn't kill her. He probably won't destroy. I don't think she'd be killed, but he wanted her to like stick around to see that like yeah, like you're still around. The Forsaken's still around, but your days are numbered. You know, like get ready. And I look forward to the day the Gilneans take back their city. I don't know what they're gonna do with it because it's kind of destroyed. And they've probably gotten used to living, you know, in Teldrassil, which I'm gonna be so sad when that burns down. And I'll put a spoiler tag up in the title because we are talking some spoilers, but whatever.
I mean, we had the announcement on it. Everyone should know it by now.
Yeah, but yeah, I like how they covered a lot of different themes in Legion. I like how the Legion threat was handled and dealt with. I like how we didn't just attack Sargeras' toes and go, oh, you tickled me, and then, you know, we got our loot. You know, we got more Titan story, which, again, there's so many stories and stuff that they've been hinting about and, like, alluding to, like, other Legion stuff, the Void, the Light and Shadow, the Titans, that it's been so unclear for a long time.
Oh,
and
there's a doorbell, sorry.
Alright, it's alright, I can make a cut in the video, it's whatever. See, now that Kavo's got me good at his food from his doorbell, I can talk all kinds of shit about him. Oh, Kavo, my bro, you make me wanna say bravo. He sings real good, he makes them parodies. Check out Kavo's parodies. I did some VO for a couple of them. It was pretty good. Wasn't my best work, but that's when I had my other microphone and there's reverbs and stuff, but I enjoyed screaming I am my scars. I enjoyed having like a drill sergeant intro for the one of them. That was fun. Yeah, boy. Let's keep this between you and me. Kavo doesn't have to know about this.
Side note, hello, you still there?
Yeah.
The guy who delivered my food was an old classmate.
Wow. Let's see that every day.
Alright. Where were we at again?
Alright, now I was just saying how welcome back, by the way. I was just saying how I like how Legion touched on a lot of things. It gave us insight to a lot of things like the Titans and all kinds of stuff that we had heard about in the past, but it hadn't been fleshed out really. So I liked how it did that. So that's story and PvE. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other little features that they introduced, like the Mage Tower. Would you care to kick this off?
Yeah, so I mean, I do agree we needed something more challenging because, you know, when you do a raid, you get what you're doing. And the whole point of a raid is to like build up to it, practice it, keep grinding at it while you're just like running through and everything. But I think we can agree this like expansion, at least for Tomb of Sargeras and Antorus, it took really quickly to clear a normal and even heroic raid. Like, it was pretty quick. And I don't know if I was a little thrown off by that, just because I get you want to like get through the content, and I know LFR is not always the best way to go through stuff.
Right, but Mythic was always rough, so like, you know,
Mythic was always rough.
They always had
that. I mean, that is the progression nowadays with guilds, is Mythic. Like, it used to be just the raid and then the 25-man raids and then eventually heroic raids. But Mythic is the prime progression now for it. So a lot of people, they didn't always get to like display their skills on that because maybe you didn't have, or maybe you couldn't get plugged into a group, or maybe you didn't have time to actually raid or anything like that. So you wanted something that was challenging for you. Well, Mage Tower definitely gave you that damn challenge, because I go into it. There's gonna be times I have nightmares facing Reyes, like and his brother trying to freaking down him because Karam. The first time I originally tried to fight him, I'm like, what do I do?
That's what I like is how much like a raid encounter, like you need to learn like from the ground up exactly what to do, and every time a new mechanic is introduced, you got to relearn how to do it. And what I do like is how it required you to pick stats and talents and legendaries that you would almost never use. You know, you had to build your character, you know, well, as much of a build variety as we have in current WoW, very differently. Like, I use talents that I almost never used. I use legendaries that, like, why would I use that? You know, but you have... Go ahead. I was going to say, you have beaten it on your Frost Mage, right?
Oh, yeah. The day that happened, I was so happy because I was like, finally, I don't have to do this fucking ever again. Because honestly, I could care less on any other spec or any other character. And I know you say, but what about the werebear? I don't give a fuck. I just wanted to get it done with my mage just to say I've done it. And ever since I got it, originally when I said I didn't like the appearance, ever since I got it, I was like, this actually doesn't look that bad now.
You know what? I had that with half of my appearances because like once you work that hard and like even if you weren't doing it for the reward, if that's the reward for that hardship, like yeah, I'll use it. Like I got WoW open right now. Like the Destro appearance, I didn't really care about it. Like the one that you get from winning 10 BGs is pretty cool, but like overall, I wasn't interested in the appearance. But once I finally beat it, I'm like, you know what? I'll use this. And like I've done a few mage towers, so I can kind of speak about them from a design perspective. I've done all 3 warlock specs. Like Destro, I also did Discipline. Destro and Discipline had the same one where it's 2 Blood Totem, where it's just interrupt and survive, and kite. If you don't kite the worm, it'll take longer, but if you kite the worm, it won't take as long. Great design.
Right.
I did not like that. I thought that was a pretty crappy challenge, but I geared up my Discipline Priest solely for the appearance. I hardly touched my Priest. I play him a little bit now. Discipline's fun in dungeons, Holy's good in raids, Shadow's fun to play around with, but I did that for the Discipline appearance. I didn't do Destro, I only felt the need to do because it was my main. I think and that was kind of like why you were so adamant on doing it with your Frost Mage, right? Is because like you didn't care as much about the appearance, like that's your main, you want
to get it done.
Yeah, like you wanted to do it. Like, and
I wanted to have the status, like how people like, whoa, you did your challenge appearance? I'm like, or you did your challenge mode? I'm like, yeah, man.
Yeah.
I did Mage Tower. I done that shit, and just to like see people recognize that. Like I've even had people like come up to me and be like, whoa, man, where'd you get that staff? I'm like, oh, you do it in Mage Tower. He goes, oh, how hard was it? I'm like, good luck.
Yeah, I like when people kind of give you that because like I did it for the other 2 warlock specs, and like when I did my Destro, I was probably like the 915 range. It was like I think it was like late night hold, like or it was like early tomb, so I was probably like in the 915 ish. But for demo and affliction, I don't play those specs anywhere near. I thought affliction warlock, like the twins challenge, wasn't horribly designed, but it was horribly designed for affliction warlocks. Like frost mages have slows. Druids have some slows in CC. Shadow priests, have a lot of passive slows and CCs. Affliction warlocks, like, you need one of 2 legendaries. Like, there's there's a corruption ring, which slows down anything that has corruption on it by a little bit. Or you have the legs that allow you to use your demonic portal to port across the room twice before triggering the cooldown. And even then, it's still a ballic because that's not a slow class. Your pet has banish, but whatever. Like, I thought that was... I have no idea why they designed that for the Affliction Warlock, but, like, I just overgeared it and blew it up. Demo and Rep Paladin I also did. They had the same challenge, which was Silgrin, the Valkyrie lady, and the 2 rune dudes. I didn't think that was really good either. It was an endurance fight, and it was like, how many mechanics can we stack up on top of each other before it becomes overwhelming? And then, okay, you got past that? Good. The rest of the fight is completely Resident Sleeper. The tanking challenge, on the other hand, fuck me tender and call me Sally Beth. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Like I spent so long, and like the prot pal I want, I did solely for the appearance. Like I'm not like I've enjoyed tanking recently, but I'm not a tank. I'm a ranged DPS. But that appearance though, the appearances for tanks are too good. Like, so I got my Pally and my Warrior up to like 920, 930. I overgeared it a little bit. And I finally got those. But the tanking challenge, I think, was the best design Mage Tower. So
I'd say generally, if you're a tank or a healer, you should definitely earn those better looking rewards. Because you have a harder role to do than a DPS. Now, having said that, I think the whole thing is just your knowledge of your class is all like how well do you know your class, and it'll teach you very quickly if you know how to play your class or not. Like
for sure.
Like as soon as I got like Reyes, or was it Karam? Excuse me. As soon as I got him down the first phase, I'm like, oh yes, it's easy going. Oh, there's ads, shit. So then you got to readjust, and you're like, okay, well then what do you do next? You got to figure out a way to slow the ads down so they don't stack on top of you. But they're also not just there to, like, kill. They're there to help you, because if you realize, oh wait, for every time I hit him with a blizzard hit, my frozen orb ticks up. So I can hurl that thing out over and over again, have insta-cast blizzards, and then it'll help me with procs with such things like ice lances that I could be like, oh shit, I could definitely do this now. So you have a knowledge of like, okay, where do I need to be, what do I need to throw down, and how is it going to affect it takes your knowledge of a class, and instead of just face rolling on a keyboard like you usually do in many encounters now, it actually requires you to think and plan and prioritize how you're going to play your class in this run, which I think is something they need not only just to bring in for just a single encounter for a mage tower, but I honestly think they should do that again for not just mythic level raids. I think that needs to be back in for like normal raids so that people actually know how to play their class.
Yeah, like I like what you're saying, 100%. Like it also let the uniqueness and utility of different classes and specs shine, which we haven't had as much of. Like in Burning Crusade and Vanilla, like you had warlocks tanking various bosses. You know, like I mean, I'm a warlock man, so I'm gonna be biased towards that. But like you had so many different, you know, like each class and spec could shine in such a way. Whereas as the time went on, there's been more homogenization. Whereas the Mage Tower, there's only a few different ones, but each one catered to what a certain few classes can do. And I really I want more of that content. I do. Because like anytime you can let the specialty of your spec shine, and even like frost mages, you know, druids, like they could do similar things, but they do them very differently. Like, you know, frost mages, you got that burst AoE, and like, you know, with the blizzards and the frozen orbs and all that. Like druids, like they have their starfalls and their mass entangles. Like they're all doing the same goal, but they're going about it differently. And that's what I love, is when you're like, oh, I did it this way, and then I did it this way. Like, you know, when people start talking about the uniqueness of their class, you know.
Right.
It's good stuff.
It even defines like who the player is. And one thing I really like is when you have player uniqueness, which is also why I really miss the old talents like setup, because you had 52 talents that you could choose from, and originally you could like adjust it between specs, so it didn't have to just primarily be in like frost or fire, or could primarily be in enhancement and stuff. You literally like you could see entirely customizable character like classes based on just like how they spec'd in talents. Like example, you had a shaman who was primarily enhancement that could double as a off healer if he needed to, just by specking into resto a few spots. Like granted, he's not going to heal the entire raid, but he can help.
Yeah.
And that was really cool because you made a unique character. Now everything's cookie cutter.
Right.
We have guides that we have to go by, or that we go by if we want to have great DPS. We have people doing encounter videos that shows. Now, granted, that's what I did. I looked at the encounter video in order to figure out how the hell I was going to freaking do it. But at the same time, at that encounter video, it was more showing you what it was giving you, like the tips of what you would need to throw down, or this is how I did it.
Right.
And the others, in like what you just said, it shows you how one guy does it, but it's not going to tell you how you're going to do it. Like,
right.
How did I end up eventually doing it? Was just once I got him to like 9%, I was like, throw everything at him real quick.
It was, you're at that point where you're like, just die.
Oh,
like
at the point when I killed him, there was literally 6 big ads right in front of me closing in. I literally thought I was in the scene from Alice in Wonderland where all the people were charging at me at the end of the movie, and then she wakes up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh god,
like,
no.
That was the tanking challenge, like to a T. Because like, are you familiar with how the tanking challenge works at all?
No.
Well, I'll be quick about it. Like, there's a phase 1 where you basically have to chain, interrupt, and stun lock an Inquisitor. He has an aura around him that if you stand in it, you get stacks of a debuff that drains your health, and like you'll just get one shot if you don't stay out of it and stun him. Like, that's long and tedious, but not too hard. You got to control ads. Velen's there with you, and he throws out orbs every so often that will stun everything and heal you up to full. So phase 1's not too bad. Phase 2, High Lord Cruel, you might have heard that name floating around. He jumps out and he casts something on you called Annihilate, which is where he hits you like a truck, but then he puts a debuff on you that you take 150% more damage from the next Annihilate. So like, you have to manage your cooldowns perfectly, and eventually it's also a rush DPS test, kind of, because if you don't kill him before those Annihilate stacks, you're gonna get one shot no matter how many cooldowns you have up. And like, he'll put pools on you that you have to get out of. You know, he'll do a spell called Twisted Reflection, which I hate, which is where if you get afflicted by it, any bit of damage he does to, I think you do to him or he does to you, heals him. So as a paladin, you had to interrupt it, or as a warrior, you got the spell reflected, so you actually got the heal from the damage you did, which is great. But at the end, where you had like, because tanks can do some damage, but they're not doing like frost mage, destruction warlock DPS. They're not. So like when he had like 3 million health, I was just spamming shield slam and thunder stomp, like just die, just die,
Just get out, please.
because I'm like the next annihilate, I am literally fucked. So I'm like just die. But yeah, like I got a little bit off topic there, but like yeah, I love that intensity of it. But going back to the old talent trees and like the uniqueness of the class, some of my like you play a mage, so you'll be able to appreciate this. Some of my favorite hybrid builds were from classic. Like the mage builds were great. Like Arcane Frost was like a support spec. Like you put Winter's Chill up, which improved everyone else's frost damage. So you weren't topping the DPS yourself, but you were improving overall raid damage. Arcane Fire, which was Palm Pyro, where you took Presence of Mind, which made your next spell instant cast. You could one shot somebody with an instant cast Pyroblast. You know, like if you've seen the big blue dress video, that PvP video from ages ago, where the guy's just flying around the battleground, just one shotting people. Like I really like that kind of stuff. You know, where you can really play around. And like warriors, you would take enough points in protection to have last stand. But like you were doing DPS other than that. If the main tank died, you popped last stand and you became that tank for as long as you could survive. You know,
Yeah.
like yes, if you want to be optimal, of course, if you want to be optimal, things were cookie cutter always. But you had the choice, like especially with 40-man rating, you didn't need 40 optimal bros. You can get away with like 15, 20 optimal bros, and the rest just kind of going dirt, dirt, dirt. And that's a beautiful thing. Like I sound elitist sometimes, but that's a beautiful thing when you can have that freedom of having all that different playstyle. Viable? What's viable? We're 40 bros. We're gonna kill the thing one way or another. And I like that. Whereas now it's so homogenized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's disappointing because when you go into like say like you're watching a movie or a TV show, an example, like when you look at like characters on a screen, the most memorable characters in any like sort of like production are the ones that are unique, and they're the ones that also rely on like not just themselves but their team. And it's like you got one guy, let's talk about like I've been watching Agents of Shield. All right, so I've been watching that. Like you got a few characters on there. You've got Sky, who on the first 2 seasons was dedicated as the hacker. Like she's the one who could get into like anything and like help hack through stuff. Then you got Fitz, who's an engineer, Simmons, who's a chemist. You also have like Ward, who is turncoat, but he's also like he's the main fighter guy. And then you got May, who's the fighter guy, who's like the best of the fighters. But the cool thing about each one is that they're unique. Like you know what their strengths are, you know what their weaknesses are, but you also know like how they perform at their best. And I know this is an odd tangent to go on, but that's what I liked about originally back in like old talent setups, was that you got to really customize how you played your character originally. And now you've got games now where you specifically can customize your character by just like stacking them certain ways. You got a game where like you can basically get traits from other character classes that you normally wouldn't get, but because they're your alt, you could literally make like a a battle mage where they have melee skills, but they're able to shoot out spells as well.
What game is that?
Believe it or not, Star Wars: The Old Republic. They had this
Blasphemy that I didn't know
Legacy.
that, but yeah.
I know it was like the legacy system or something like that, or where when you made for example, like one of the Inquisitors on the Sith side has Force Lightning that you can throw out. If you make a gunslinger or a bounty hunter on the Sith side and it's an alt, you can actually get skills from the Inquisitor on that character.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, you could have like a gunslinger who could also shoot out Force Lightning. And I was like, what? Like it's stuff like that I like. Like you make it more unique to your character. But again, like there you've got those people like, I just want to be the best DPS. I just want to get through the content. Just do this, do that, blah 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 blah, whatever. Like you've got the original crew of people who loved the original like play of WoW. That is like, what is there any way we can make it more customizable? Because everyone loves uniqueness.
Yeah.
That's what I love about like everyone. We don't want the same kind of person all the time. Like I want to meet someone who's different. I want to play a character who's different than the other thing. And that's also kind of a cool thing about role play is you could literally do that.
Yeah.
Like it's imagination.
Honestly,
Like,
role players have more fun in the game than any other kind of player.
oh yeah, I've got my mage. He is originally a rogue. He is someone who is brainwashed to be a assassin rogue, but he also has frost and fire properties. That's another thing. If frost and fire, not just one element.
Frostfire bolts, never forget.
Yeah, which allows him to not only be a caster, but he's able to like have melee combat skills in the same space, which is great because you can, and you even look at Dungeons and Dragons. You can multi-class in Dungeons and Dragons, like you can fuse them together. So you could do so many things. I just wish we were able to do that in WoW. And I know we're really talking more about like Legion and all that, but I think it's like a deep dive kind of thing where I think they're in a way they're starting to go towards it a little bit, especially with allied races.
Right, with allied races, with classic servers coming back, they might be giving that some new ideas. Looking at like the Battle for Azeroth Alpha, a lot of old spells coming back, which I'm liking. But like to wrap up the identity discussion, like they pushed class identity in Legion, but not spec identity. Like I know too much spec identity. Like because I love how with the order halls, when you were in your order hall, you felt like insert class here. Mage order hall, books and floating stuff. Warlock, planet in the twisting nether. Hunter, in the mountains with totems and bonfires and trees and stuff. Like you felt like your class, but it just felt sterile and like it was almost too much. Like I miss the days where you could have frostbolt and fireball on your action bar at the same time. It's cheesy to think about, but I like that.
I mean, it would make sense though too. Like you could have the thing I like. This is like way too much like theory crafting and like thinking of stuff. But if you think about, for example, a mage, if you think about like the magic users and stuff, if they are born with magic, not one person's magic is going to be the same from the other.
Right.
Like you're going to have someone they may just only be able to like emit arcane spells or able to learn arcane. Although I would rather say I think arcane's more knowledge based than even like born with.
Well, arcane is also the baseline for like frost and fire and stuff.
Right. But like it's all depending on your DNA and how your biorhythms are set, where you could have maybe you have strictly frost, someone has strictly fire, someone might have both. You never know. You could be like Khadgar, you have all three at once, and like that's cheating.
Right, or the elementalist spec, from back in the day, using frost and fire,
it makes
but
everything so unique, and I love like thinking about it and like seeing like, especially when you talk to a character who's fleshed out their character roleplay wise and story wise, and seeing what their background is, and they did a really good job of it, with the exception of Tauren Warlocks. But if you
that breaks my immersion.
See, like there's oh, who was it? Like, I remember I spoke to one person that completely fleshed out their entire character history, where it actually made sense lore-wise, made sense class-wise, and it was just bending a bit rather than completely breaking a lore altogether.
Right, it worked with it.
Yeah, it works.
The thing is, though, I think, like, now that I think about it, I think the reason why you could have so much variety back in the Yonder days is because of resistance. Bosses and mobs in various places had resistance to, like, various things. Like, Molten Core and Blackwing Lair, the two first main raids of vanilla, things were resistant to fire and shadow, so, like, you had to play Frost.
They need to bring that back.
I agree and disagree. I agree and disagree. It's like Threat. The way Threat used to work. I think they should and shouldn't. The most players today would not know how to cope with it. They would hate it. It would cause uproar. But for a select few people who think that's a new level of gameplay, yeah, that's a good thing. I think we got a little bit off topic there, but that's okay. Like it all, it all had to do with each other. It all had to whatever. I don't know what to say. Like yeah, that all tied in one way or another. What else I want to talk about? Ooh, Karazhan. What was your thoughts on the real quick? What was your thoughts on the Karazhan revamp?
It was beautiful.
Yeah, I was afraid.
I mean, I didn't play a lot of Karazhan back in the day already, but like I was whenever they do a revamp or not like a basic revamp, like when they did what was it? Actually, no, let's say that when they do a revamp of a dungeon, I'm always nervous. Like when they did Ragefire Chasm,
Mm,
I'll be honest, I kind of miss the old one more
right. Same thing with the
than the new
Scarlet
one.
Dungeons.
Yeah, Scarlet Dungeons, I miss the old one a little more than the new one. Having said
Skullman's.
that, I actually prefer the new Dead Mines just because it's a little more like not I wouldn't say fast paced, but it's a lot more enjoyable in my opinion.
It's more
Same
dynamic for sure.
same thing with Shadowfang Keep. I do enjoy it a little more right now. I mean, granted, I would like to like have a chance to
Classic servers are coming, mate.
see the old stuff. Yeah, okay, classic servers.
Classic
Okay.
servers are coming.
But I would still like to go back to it at one point. Yeah, classic server will be able to do that then. But I with Karazhan though, it wasn't like they didn't like just revamp a dungeon. They didn't do a revamp. It's a new. It's all new, and it's just
Half new.
reminding you of the old stuff, like
Yeah.
but heightening it. Like that whole chest like floor, like coming up from the ground, is like replacing itself back in the ground.
Yeah,
It's
that
beautiful.
was a nice, like, they really, like, they took the base idea, like, it was a revamp done right, where, like, the first few tickled your nostalgia in a way, although the mechanics were kind of different. It tickled your itch for nostalgia, but then they took the general theme and they blew it 9 times further. It was like, how many places, how many themes, how many things can we do in one dungeon, in one instance, while still keeping you in the same instance? You know, like, they kept the theme of the dark haunted castle with other stuff and you meet a demonic presence at the top. They kept that theme, but how much further are you gonna go? Now you're on spaceships. He's shooting laser beams at you. You know, like, I thought that was so cool. Like, I love Karazhan was a treasure. It is a treasure. It's one of I think it's one of the best instances they've ever created. But I was worried that they would touch that too much. That they would just give you a big flashy revamp, or they would keep it the same and just scale it up. Which I'm like, okay, cool, scaled Karazhan, but it's just scaled Karazhan, you know? They did it right. They met you in the middle, which is exactly how you should do a revamp, in my opinion. And they did not, like with some of the other revamps, they did not get rid of the original. I was mad. I'm like, you better not get rid of old Karazhan. You will have riots. People visit that place for memory's sake. They did not. No, they kept it.
Thankfully.
Yeah. I wish they kept old UBRS. They said they were going to keep it, and then just put you in the new one when you plopped up to max level, but whatever. But yeah, I think we've hit on pretty much everything I wanted to hit. Do you have anything else you want to add in?
Well, maybe real quick, like maybe just give like a. Well, maybe this is more of something we can discuss on maybe a expectations for Battle for Azeroth, maybe on a different
No, we can lump that into here.
Well, I think we have a lot to talk about on that.
Yeah, well, we've already been recording for 53 minutes, but yeah,
So
I'll give me another video.
yeah, I think another video we can definitely talk more about like what we expect with Battle for Azeroth coming up and what we can't wait for. But as far as Legion, I mean, it is my second favorite of all the expansions in.
I'm gonna
World
guess
of Warcraft.
Wrath is your first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wrath will always be my favorite, and actually the funny factor that connects two of them is that the main hub is both Dalaran.
Yeah,
Because you can't really beat Dalaran as a. I mean, okay,
it's cool.
Zoldazar, in Dazzle Alar, which is the capital city of Zoldazar, and Zandalar in general. That's going to be an awesome hub, nonetheless, for the Horde side. But still, Dalaran is still number one for me.
Yeah, I'm still a sucker for Shatrath and Burning Crusade. Like that's why I had feels when I first got on the Vindicar, because you heard like the ambient chimes of the Naru. You know what I mean? Like that ambient sound that the Naru makes. You heard that in the Vindicar, and you heard that in Shatrath when you talked to Adal, and you had that horrible 7-minute escort quest around Shatrath. God help me. But to me, like, a lot of people shit on Shatrath. I see why Dalaran is regarded better, but to me, Shatrath will always be my favorite. You know, but yeah, like good hubs. Like, it's hard to beat a good hub. You know, everyone loved hanging out in Dalaran and Wrath. Some people got tired of it in Legion, but it's Dalaran. You really gonna complain? At least you're not hearing citizens of Dalaran. Raise your eyes to the skies and observe.
Oh, did April Fool's Day?
I'm sure he did. Did you do that?
I don't think this last one, but the one before that, they actually put that in there.
I got banned from my guild Discord for saying that speech. Yeah.
Probably justified too.
I got reinvited, but like one of the officers just kicked me, and like, have you ever had that happen to you? Where you're like, did you just kick me? Like,
Yep.
yeah.
In the old days,
Did you start singing on Ventrilo back in the day?
singing on Ventrilo.
Did you start? Yeah. Did you do that? I feel like you did that back in the day.
I did if my a few of my guildies, because I used to do it in the remember the old WoW voice chat.
When they tried to make that a thing, yeah.
Oh no, this was back before we even tried Ventrilo. This was back in 2008. Like there was a voice chat in there, and I tried to or we all talked in it, but it was so disordered, and even no matter how great your mic quality was, it was
The
horrible.
the codec itself for handling the sound
Yeah.
files, yeah. No.
As soon like I recommended Ventrilo to our guild leader, and I'm like, this is probably a better option because it's a dedicated server, and you're not having to worry about like distortion. And they said, okay. The first day we all got on it, they were like, wait, we want to check something. Hey, Kavo, or back then it was Shodan. Like, hey, can you sing some stuff for us? I'm like, okay. And I just started singing, and like, whoa, okay, you are a good singer. I'm like, thanks.
Yeah. Isn't that back when you had your like, you know, your professional mic from when you did like sound engineering in college or whatever?
Not when I first started, because I was on my laptop back when I first started. But when I was in my first apartment, yeah, I had my studio mic.
Do you remember what kind it was or no?
No,
Mm.
it wasn't a USB mic. It was a dynamic mic, but it had to do it through like this big interface.
Yeah.
So, not like any of the mics today. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I still use my dynamic. I know people who have dynamic mics and stuff, but they just use their headset and raid chat. I'm like, why? Just change the default input setting, like, and you can like show off. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, Legion definitely in the top 3 for best expansions for sure. Of course, everyone's got their own personal likes, dislikes, biases, whatever. I don't think anyone's putting Warlords over Legion. Let's be clear with that. I don't think anyone's gonna do that. But hey, I will still stand by that. Warlords had a lot of good things going for it. The leveling was great. The zones were brilliantly laid out. The cutscenes were great. The 3 raids we got were good. The content we got was good. There just wasn't enough. But
execution was terrible though.
yeah, and you know stuff got cut. But we're not talking about Warlords. Everyone and their mothers had to put up Warlords enough, or harped on Warlords enough. But yeah, Legion. It's been a great ride. Why don't you let us know how you've enjoyed Legion? If you have been listening to us ramble for an hour, tell us what you guys thought about Legion. Kavo, any closing remarks for the lovely bachachos out there?
Legion, we love you, and when Battle for Azeroth comes out, we will miss you, but at the same time, cannot wait for Battle for Azeroth.
We will not miss your legendaries, Legion, but other than that, you're pretty great.
I kind of will, but that's another point.
We can go into legendaries too for a while, but we've been going on for long enough.
We're good. We're done.
Yeah, and we will see you during the next AJ and Kavo. I think do we even have a name for this? Because we're only doing like.
Yeah, no, we haven't come up with a name of it yet. We're working on that part.
I'm trying to think of one. Yeah, whatever. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Anyway, we've been dragging out this outro for a while. See you guys. Bye. Say goodbye.